Good morning, guys, and welcome to iPhone Smart. Today I would just like to use the Kenilworth card to explain a bit more about our BAMRAL and our BAT functionality. Now, first of all, BAMRAL, or Best Average Merit Rating Adjusted Lengths Behind, is one of our key indicators, and you'll see them here as a BAMRAL 42 in the last 42 days, or in green. If you actually look at the dates here, as you'll see, the green is 42 days and the yellow is 84 days. And if there is red, then the red will be the 168 days, and the rest will follow in the up to 280 days in the BAT curve, which is our consistency curve. In other words, weighted with regards to the number of days back from today. So number of days you go back in history, weighted versus your most recent, obviously carries a much bigger weight than your old 280-day form. So that's what BAMRAL and BAT is, and you can also use your probability stats at the top here. So there's your P stats. 43 races has been done. In this case, for the Kenilworth 1200 Class E, which is maiden juvenile plate for fillies, and this in Kenilworth, on those 43 races, you'll see that the highest probability for a winner is coming from OB, which is open betting, and that's 38% chance on country time. And here you can see a 30% is on creme brulee, which is your overall ranking, which is obviously a much better price, and then 32% is on overall ranking here, 33% on form here on country time. So you got a 1 out of 3 chance for an even money to win. It may win, it may not win, but yeah, the fact of the matter is, from an accounting perspective and a risk versus reward perspective, it's obviously no value to back a even money favorite at the 33% chance to win. But be that as it may, your BAT 42 you'll see is in green, your BAT 84 is in yellow, your BAT 168 is the red numbers, and your BAT curve will then be in normal black as the rest. So that essentially is how we split up BAMRAL and BAT. Now here you'll see the BAMRAL 42, 84, 168, and BAMC for your consistency. And here you see the BAT 42, BAT 84, BAT 168, and the BAT-C for your consistency. Now what's the difference between BAMRAL and BAT? The only difference between the two is the adjusted time. So BAMRAL essentially takes your best average merit rating. So in other words, your average merit rating of the field versus the average merit rating of the previous field that every horse has run against, and then the merit rating of the horse versus the average merit rating of the field the previous time, and that merit rating of the horse versus the average merit rating of the field this time, and then we adjust that based on the actual merit rating of the horse of the race in question, as well as the weight carried previous time versus the weight carried today. And in maiden it's normally both the same, 60 and 60, as well as the number of lengths behind the previous time, behind the winner. So essentially, if you take a line in the sand, call it 0, that 0 is your finishing line, and anything above 0 would mean that you are behind the winner, and everything below the 0 means that you are ahead of the fictitious winning line. So when you look at 0, 0 means for the specific class in question, that is the average of that field. So if I see a BAT 42 value here and I see a 2.67, it means that this field is 2.67 lengths slower than the average field of the 43 races that we have looked at previously for the Kenilworth 1200 Class E. So the class of the actual field today is slightly worse. Now essentially what that would mean for us is that the chance of a first timer winning is a little bit more, because the average class of this field is 2.67 lengths worse than the average of the 1200 Class E that we've seen at Kenilworth. And in that way it actually then throw up, okay, so let's look at the first timers. So in this case we don't have many. We have Entitled here, we have F8, we have Gift for Heaven, we have Jam Jam, Silver Links. So essentially we have those ones as first timers. So when I look at Entitled, it's a twice over, Masked Lady, Casey Tibbs, N. Johnson is the owner, the breeder is Manchance Farms, and Greg Shane takes the ride, which is quite intent booking, 5.71% wins and 25% on the places. When we look at F8, actually got some very decent breeding here. It's a Futura, Lundy's Liability and Bursary, and Mr. Dean Cannemer has a share in this horse. It's currently at a very ridiculous price of 40 to 1. But that's the kind of thing that I would actually nibble at, because it is good breeding and it is partly owned by the trainer and the owner. The trainer is in good form. He's had 4 runs since his last since his last win, and the jockey, Mr. Keegan de Melo, is in very good form. He's ranked 3rd in the country, and he has a 16.02% chance of winning for the trainer, and additionally 38% chance of placing, so that gives you a 54% chance of a top 4 on F8, which then from a probability perspective does make it a lot juicier at 320% return for a top 4. That's the kind of thing I look at when I'm actually looking at a race where there's not a lot of form or a lot of data. Then we have to look elsewhere, and that's normally where we can look, is see where your bat value is. If your bat value is negative, it means it's better than the class average, which then would essentially mean that the chances of a first timer winning is less. But when it's above the average, then your chances of a first timer winning is more, and that would bring in horses like F8 and Gift from Heaven, which is getting support in the market. It was at 6 to 1. It's currently at 2.86, so that's one to look at. Another one I would look at is Silver Links, because Justin Snaith has the intentions always, when he has Grant van Niekerk booked, he has a 22% chance of winning with Van Niekerk and a 64% chance of placing with Van Niekerk. So that's also a good breeding Silvano with Fort Wood. So that's another horse that I could potentially be looking at. That's some very decent value. And then what else is we did? Jam Jam we talked about. Gift from Heaven is the one that's getting the support, and then F8 as well as Entitled. So in this race, don't always just look at the betting. If you always look at the betting, if you always just follow the sheep, then no one makes money following sheep. There's absolutely zero chance of you making any profit in the long run if you are actually telling me that everyone's doing it. Of course, we can't be making money if everyone's doing the same thing. You need to swim upstream to actually be making money in horse racing, especially in KZN, which currently is just full of intentions and no form. It's just yeah, it's a mess. Unfortunately, now that everything's controlled by one entity, it's an absolute mess. The results are coming through there. But be that as it may, that's the kind of thing that I would be looking at. So when you look at BAMRAL, it's the best average merit rating adjusted lengths behind. So best average merit rating of the horse versus the previous races that that horse was raced in, and then his weight today, his weight previously, his lengths behind previously, versus what that would coincide with the strength of the field for today, and therefore a value that we then foresee running. And then you also have to look, of course, at whether that BAMRAL or bat is within the distance category of today. Now what I mean with that is, if this is 1,200 meters, then we look at 150 meters down, so it must be above 1,151 meters previously, or sorry, we changed that to 200 meters, so it must be above 1,000 meters previously. And if it's not, you'll find that these values turns into red, which means it's outside the distance category of today. And I'll show you some examples of that just as we get to the races where there's more form. Like here we go, see these reds here. If it's red, it means that value was achieved in a distance outside of the distance category of today. So what I mean by that is this 1,000 meters here, it ran a really good bat of 1.39, which this is in length, so it's about 2.5 meters for each length. So it's about 3 meters difference on a 1.339. And your closest from 1.39 is the 7.63 here. So you'll see you've got a good 6 lengths, which is times the 2.5 is 15 meters, but both of these are in red. So the reason why this one is in red with a block around it means it's the best one in the last 42 days, and this one with the block on the 139, it's the best one in the last 84 days. And if you hover over it, you'll see the actual date, the entry 18:05:22. So that brings us to this 18:05:22 run here when Jacobs was riding. Drifted from 16 to 50 over 1,000 meters, which essentially means that they weren't expecting anything, but they did run it into a CTFS the following time, which is interesting when it just moved up 200 meters. But that 1.39 was over 1,000 meters. Today is 1,400 meters, which essentially means it did not really like it going over further because it dropped 11 lengths when it went 200 meters further. For that reason, Scalini is not a good bet for me, because it seems from the data that I see that he's not going to last the extra 200 meters. So that's the kind of thing that I'd be looking at when I'm trying to assume what's going to happen. So Canford Lights here for me is probably a better example, because if I look at the actual rating, and we can look at the collateral form at the bottom here to see who's run against each other before, and you see this Canford Lights and Scalini ran against each other on the 15th of June, and Canford Lights was 7th and Scalini was 4th over the 1,200 meters. So immediately we think Scalini is the better one, because Scalini started from 12 to 1. It's now, from a draw of 12, it's now in a 1 draw. Canford Lights was also badly drawn at 10, it's now a 3 draw. Scalini was also favored in the market more, 6.5, drifted to 14. Canford Lights was at 10, drifted to 20. Scalini finished 1.95 lengths ahead of Canford Lights, and they were both over the same 60 kilograms. So that's how you would then get to these bat figures. Now that would mean that the 2.92 versus the 16.1 is about 4 lengths difference between the two, or 3 and a bit lengths difference between the two. And the reason for that is we also calculate the change of draw into our BAMRAL and bat figure. In other words, if we look at what the width is of a starter block, we do take that width into consideration when it moves from a 12 to a 1 draw. It's obviously a way better draw if it's going around that side. If the draw is a better draw from the inside, and here you can see the more highlighted it is. In this case, a 1 means that the 1 draw is quite simply a lot better. So when you see that 1, you see that 1 draw is really good in this 1,400 meters. But when you start going to the 10 draw, you'll see they turn into black because they're not good. And Teatro on an 11 draw is the worst off on the draw in this case. So Teatro needs to overcome this draw to be able to win. I'm not saying he can't win, I'm saying he needs to overcome the draw. Now, because I'm not saying he can't win is because if I'm actually looking at these bat figures and I look at only green ones within the distance category, then I come up with horses like Heathcliff at 11.04 and Teatro at 11.49 and Quartermain at 11.61 and Scalini at 12.92 and Canford Lights at 16.1. These are all in the last 42 days. So from these, Heathcliff has proven to us that he can do the distance in the best last 42 days within the distance category. So that's essentially what this BAMRAL and bat means. So that means that's how I actually look at where my horses has a little bit of an advantage. Other things we need to consider, of course, is like the being gelded. So there's the needle there, it's being gelded, it's coming back from a rest because it's got a little man there with a 1 next to it, and previously when it came back from a rest, it has a snow globe on it, which means essentially it's cold from a rest, because it hasn't shown us when coming from a rest that it's hot. And you'll see all of these indicators at the top here, what they actually mean. So if it's medium, it's a win in place 50 to 70%, and if it's hot from a rest, it's above 70% win in place ratio. All of these things you can actually see here on the ratings explained. All of this is in, every single thing is down here. And if you don't like reading, we'll make it even easier for you by simply clicking on the tutorials for horse racing, and you can see an in-depth tutorial of all these things with all the previous tutorials we've done on the YouTube channel, or you can simply just play it from here in the box, the same as we do our preview for our people, for our members down here every single day. So essentially all the tools are there. If you just put in a little bit of effort, you will be rewarded. If you take that little bit of effort and you put it in there, you'll see at the side here, if you don't want to do your fantasy on the fantasy page at the top here, our members can do the fantasy here, and here you can see, oh yeah, I've got 0 fantasy selections left. Heathcliff, what the price is, how much profit I will get, what the win odds edge factor cost is, and the win odds edge factor percentage is in favor by 13%, with our rating versus the bookie on Heathcliff, for instance, just as an example to know how that win odds edge factor works. So a lot of information to take in, but let's just look at the collateral form at the bottom here, and I've showed you all of these collateral form versus each other. So based on this, Canford Lights and Scalini is actually, it looks like Scalini has done a little bit better previously, but Canford Lights didn't necessarily do very well, and it was also over 1200 meters. So I can also look at Canford Lights here versus Teatro, for instance. And I'll see both carried 60. Teatro was a 3.5 lengths behind the winner, and Canford Lights was 4.05 behind the winner. So there's only half a length between these two, but interesting to note is Teatro was backed in from a 14 into a 7 to 1, and Canford Lights was backed in from a 3.5 to a 2 to 1. A lot of money for Teatro on that previous run. Then Canford Lights and Teatro at the top here. Here Teatro was a 4.7, and Canford Lights was a 1.25. So that's 3.45 lengths better for Canford Lights over the exact same course and distance that we're doing today. It was Greg Shane on board, now it's Duamar on board. That's something to consider as well. And we're here, Teatro as Mokotwa versus Mokotwa. Now the reason why I'm saying it's something to consider as well is you know how your jockeys are performing, and the example that we used here with that 14.8 versus 20.17 is on the 20th of April. And if I look at the 20th of April here, on these two runners, you see the 20th of April where Canford Lights was second, 1400. Greg Shane was riding from a 1 draw, 1.25 behind, and you can compare that versus Duamar today and Duamar previously. So from this you can see there's not much difference between the two of them riding, because of 14.37 versus a 14.8. In fact, it looks like Duamar got a little bit more out of it over the, on that specific day, but not much, half a length. So Duamar is back again. I see there's some intentions there, and it also qualifies the highest for Greenie points, 11 out of the 22, and it also has the best BAMRAL figures on 84, the older values, and on 168, the even older than that values. And here's an example of the red one. You see the red entry is here on the 168 days. So that to me means that I'll probably find Canford Lights will be in the mix today. I also think Teatro will be in the mix, but it's not an easy race, because Heathcliff is another one that can be in the mix, and Scalini is another one that can be in the mix. And yeah, even if you look at Spice Captain on his red form, you can see the red form, the 1000 meters, is outside the category. He is doing a lot better, but when he went 1400, he went into a 27. So much worse. And then obviously you can see Heathcliff here, the 1200 was 1104, the 1400 was 1863. So again, he didn't necessarily like it for the further that he went based on that. It does get the blinkers today, and 4 kilogram higher up. And that was a Fairview run, so the class of Fairview is a little bit worse than the class of Kenilworth. So a lot of things to consider when you're actually looking at the data like that in specific details. And here you can see we've got 15 P-stats races, and in that 15 we have a 60% chance for line bat to win. Now, what is line bat? All these purple ones is where the exact same course and the exact same surface, in this case turf, and the exact same distance, or very close to within 50 meters of the distance, has been achieved. So every time when you see those will be blue bats, or purple if some people see it as purple. I said it's blue bat, and that's your bat CD, which means same course, same distance. Therefore, that 1400T Fairview doesn't qualify as a purple one, because Fairview is a different course than Kenilworth. So if you start looking into that detail, then you'll see a lot more. Like Gary Player says, the more you practice, the luckier you get. You can filter all these columns by whatever you like. This is overall ranking, greenie points, exotic ranking. In other words, the best chance for the exotics is Teatro, adjusted time speed rating, median speed or paced, the same exact distance, median speed. Difference between these two is this is just pace. This is pace within the same distance category of today. Exact distance, median speed. Median speed is just, hey, I can run fast, but not necessarily for as long as you want me to. This is, I can run fast, but also for the same distance category that you want me to for today. And that's why exact distance, median speed is more important than median speed. Except if you like looking at a horse that comes from a 600 meters or 1600 meters, and with the best median speed achieved over the 1600 meters, and now today he goes to 1000 meters, then we know he is actually just very pacey and will probably do well on the 1000 as well. Okay guys, so that's the kind of thing we are looking at. Here if you see there's a little G here, it means a greenie. Greenie means safe to bet at. Now what I mean with safe to bet at, we do 2.5% on the win of our pool, of our kitty, and 10% on the places, provided that that place return we're getting is more than 40%. So in other words, if we don't get 40% for a top 3, we turn it into a top 2 and see if we get 40% for a top 2, then we can do the 10% on the top 2. If we still get 40% on the top 4, then we'll rather take out the risk, because it's risk versus return, and then we would rather just put our 10% on the top 4, because we are still making our 40%. If we get 3 out of 4 correct, we are still making a 20% return from those 4. So that's the kind of thing. Look at it more from an investment perspective than a gambling perspective. If you do that, you will be fine. But yeah, don't just go and gamble it away. That's just silly. It's not going to help you in the long run. So other things like what I'd like to show you is how do I actually spot something that looks pretty decent, and pretty decent meaning by better than the field. So yeah, I have a sort of an example, because I'm a bit of a problem with the red 4.76 here, but when Spirit of Silvano was at the 7 on the, he didn't run yet, so last time he ran was 1805. When we look at that 1805, you see it's 5 lengths better, and nothing else matters. Now nothing else matters does have the best consistency, but it's only from the 2 runs previously, where Spirit of Silvano has had 7 runs previously. Now when I look at this, is a maiden with special weights, so now we're starting to handicap maidens, which is fine, because essentially if the horse can't win, we must give him a little bit of a chance to win, to get into the maidens. So when I'm looking at Spirit of Silvano, the run that it actually does help me the most is his previous run. You can see there's been a little bit of a juggling on his merit rating from a 74 to a 65, and that essentially means that he could be a little bit better. He's now on a 70, but he was at a 74 previously. So when I look at that versus the rest of the field, there's not much here as far as merit rating is concerned that is as close to the 74. Maybe global movement here is a 69, but the rest is all much worse. So in other words, it's a 5 points or 2.5 kilos. So when I'm looking at that, I look at this 1800 Kenilworth maiden, Keegan the Miller on board, from a very bad 13 draw. He's much better drawn at 4 today. He did run his best bat figure. Now, remember what I said, his bat figure is the BAMRAL figure adjusted with his adjusted time. You can see the adjusted time is also in a little bit of green, and there's his other green. There's the best adjusted time, is that one's is here. So you'd see that he really does very close to the best adjusted time. 100 versus 99.88 and versus 99.59, and then if you adjust that adjusted time with the BAMRAL figure, that's when we start getting noticed that he was only 0.75 lengths behind the winner, where nothing else matters, was 3.85 and then a distance behind the winner. So from that aspect, I think this 7.07 is a really good figure, achieved over the 1800 Kenilworth maiden. Now, if you look at something else that's done the 1800 Kenilworth maiden, like Rudolph Run, you'll see he was 0.5 behind the winner, which is very good. But once you start taking that very good and you compare it to the adjusted time, this adjusted time was a 64.87 and this adjusted time was a 62.47, so a 2-second difference between the two. But Rudolph Run was in yielding conditions, so that's another something that you need to consider. So when you look at the previous one, that's in a good 62.78 versus a 62.47, carrying the same 60 kilos, but the difference is that Spirit of Silvano was a 0.75 lengths and Run Rudolph 4.4, so there's a 4 lengths difference on that, which then converts to the difference here, which you see is 6 lengths between the two, but the other part of that difference is the 13 draw now coming into a 4 draw, which really makes another meter or two or another length or two difference to the outset. So Spirit of Silvano is one of your better options today, and if you want to confirm that, you look at the storyboard at the back here, JTR combo, and you see what the trainers has, and you look at Dean Cannemare. Here he has a first timer F8, which could be anything, so don't look away from it. Here we have Leadership, which is really decent enough to be in the mix here as well. Then we have Dreamt I Could Fly, which is a little bit out of it if I look at the better ones here, like Echo of Life, and even here Lucy the Pink, and yeah, these Pontevici, you'll see all of those looks a little bit better. And then you move on with Dean Cannemare to 7th Gear, which also doesn't look that great, because here it looks like a Justin Snape. Speed Machine and Hyde Park is better off, and even Vaughan Marshall, the Captain of Stealth, and Pigwater with Rocking Ringo. Those are the ones that's got a little bit more highlighting in there. But then you start moving to the back here, you see, oh, okay, here's his last run. Spirit of Silvano is best on ranking average, he's best on greenie points, he's best on total, and he's 4th on the bat curve, and he's coming from a rest because he doesn't have anything in the bat 42. And his best bat to 42 we are comparing versus Glenn Cotson, that has nothing else matters here, but not really with a lot of intent, since Grant Burr is booked 85th in the country and not Luke Mokotwa. So in this instance, Popping Crease at 33-1 is a bit more intentions, as you can see the flame here with Glenn Cotson in that race. And then Glenn Poller's got the only one runner for the day, and that is Global Movement. So if you look down here, that is Vaughan Marshall with Keep Shining, with Jacobs on board, not really one of his strike jockeys. If you look at Khumalo, Khumalo is one of his strike jockeys. You'll see Vaughan Marshall has got more intentions with Colonial Gold, Scalini, and Captain of Stealth, less intentions with Williams Impact, and sort of better intentions with Twice the Master, Richard Fourie being booked. But now I'm asking, why is Khumalo not on Vaughan Marshall in the last? And see, okay, where is Khumalo? Because he's not with Vaughan Marshall, and he's clearly got 3 strong runners here with Vaughan Marshall. So now I'm going to look at where is Khumalo in the last race, or maybe his flights are earlier. So he's not. That's Grant van Niekerk, that's Keegan the Miller, that's Grant Burr, Mokotwa, Zaki, Jacobs, and Fourie. So that means that Khumalo's last ride is not the 8th today. So his last ride will be Paul Reeves, and that is on Fearless Trip. Now, pretty interesting that Kamala is riding for Paul Reeves in this race, because he finishes off. He finishes off this. The two last runs is Fearless Trip and Chilly Winter, which 4.5 and 3.5 looks like two big intentions running. There's your flame there, so Paul Reeves should be trying with those two. That's how I actually try and decipher the puzzle when I'm actually looking at these. There's Duamire and Candace together on more black, looks pretty good as well. And then pretty good is Mike Stewart and Seeking Peace here, a nice 12-1 as well. So that's Sonic Burst not looking too bad with Stain. Stain's got a few nice runs for Pierre Botha. So that's the kind of thing that that you can try and then convert and see the puzzle. When I'm talking about this ranking average here, quite simply is just the detail average of the whole field. So all of those numbers combined as an average is 1.38, and he wins 17 of these categories. If I look at the second one, all of them combined is Master Josh with a 2, and close behind Country is the next one, Green Falcon, and then the third one, Colonial Gold, and then Gift from Heaven, and then there's a gap to 5.27. So that's what ranking average means. You'll see if it's really a huge ahead. 1.59 on Echo of Life versus the second best is 3.5. So that's a nice gap, 1.59 as an average over all these, and he loses a lot with his 7th average there. So that's a nice gap here. So he's potentially one of your bankers on the PA or Pick 6 if you really want to take that much of a chance. So that's the kind of thing you look at when you're looking at ranking averages. How strong does he really look versus the field? Here is 1.9 versus Hyde Park 2.77. So yeah, I think Justin Snaith has got a little bit of a plan here. He's got first and second in this race. So that's the kind of thing that I think is worthwhile considering. Then moving over to the next, you've got Justin Snaith again with Zippy Over, and then very close behind that, Cracklin Rose with Candace, and then it drops from a 2.5 to a 3.68. So you see the first two is very close together, and then in the 7th, 2.6, 2.8, and then 3.7, and then the last a 2 versus a 3.5. So that's a huge gap for me as well, the 1.5 difference, and that's what we saw in Spirit of Soldano. So that's the kind of thing, guys. I hope that helped to understand a little bit better about what we're talking about when we say when we actually say BAMRAL and BAT. BAMRAL is quite simply your best average merit rating adjusted length behind, and BAT is the adjusted time with that together. So that's all from me, guys. I hope that did help, and have a great day.